Welcome back to another episode of the Initiated Man podcast. This is Papa Forrest, and today I have with me Daryl. And Daryl is a yogi. He's a former devout monk, and he's someone who I consider a mentor and a guide and an elder to me personally. And I'm so honored to have you on the show as my third guest.
I'm honored to be here, and this is going to be fun.
Yeah? Okay, so would you like to do the honey breath with me?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. Thank you so much for connecting with me in that way. It's really beautiful to connect more deeply with you, because that's the closest we've been. Yeah, we've always had a table between us. Daryl is someone who I have sessions with. He mentors me and guides me and stuff here in the community. So it's good to have you here on the podcast talking to you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask you first, because this is the Initiated Man podcast. Women are welcome to listen, but it's primarily about men. So what is it that you, Daryl, love about men?
Well, I'm one of them, so it's nice to be able to talk to my kind. I think men and women are different, and I think we all have things in common as well, but I think that sometimes we need to compare ourselves or to sort of check in with others. And interestingly enough, what I like about men has to do with the kind of communication I have with them. I don't like all men. So
Very honest. Good.
Men, I think in our culture, in our world, have been taught that it's not cool to be vulnerable, and we all need that. And so I'd like to communicate with men in such a way that we're being authentic and true to our own feelings and to each other. So it's kind of a complicated answer to your question, but I have to qualify my answer that way.
Yeah. So you love like the way that you can be with men and be totally authentic and bringing that out in men. It seems like kind of what you're saying, and providing that safety and
also it occurs to me just after having said that one of the experiences I have with men is physical. And I go to the gym twice a week with my trainer, and it's really fun to have that manly experience. I can't really do that with my girlfriend or with a woman necessarily the same way. Well, some woman could do it, probably will put me through the ropes, and some of the classes they have here in Nasara, they're beyond me. But sharing that experience is fun. Men jokes are fun too.
Yes. Yeah. Just like keeping it real.
Yeah.
Taking off the masks.
Yeah.
Or at least some of them.
Yeah. And also, like, we live in a world of political correctness. And I think both men and women have enough problems as it is without having to add the the constraints of political correctness.
Yeah.
So when I say I like to joke with men, it's part of that. It's kind of like, okay, let's get it off our chest.
Totally.
And just say whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And that feels great.
Yeah. It's like more freedom to be like relaxed and your most authentic self.
Yeah.
When there's not the opposite sex involved.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it doesn't necessarily require the opposite sex for that to happen, but
Yeah.
But just because of the social environment that has been around for a while like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's partly our fault, of course.
So we're all creating this world together.
Exactly.
Beautiful. So I wanted to ask you, do you consider yourself an elder?
Well, certainly by age I do, and I know that the general, what you're probably asking about is the sense of elder as the wise man, and that's one of my persona.
Yeah.
When I say myself, that's one of my primary persona. I've been a teacher, I've been a mentor for many years. So part of me
Part of you.
is an elder. There's other parts of me that are, there's a little boy, there's a lover, there's other parts of me, but yeah,
Totally.
that's a very important part of me.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, I definitely consider you an elder in this community. And anytime anybody asks, I always mention your name. And not sure if anybody has taken me up on that yet.
If they have, I don't know. I didn't know it came
Okay.
from you, but that's
We'll
good
have
to hear.
we'll have to get an affiliate code in there, Daryl. Okay.
Get a coupon.
Yeah.
They get a discount if they say that you referred them.
Okay, we'll do that after the show. What was I going to say? Yeah, so you said one of your primary personas is elder.
Right.
And I'm just curious, like, if you had to, like, rank, what persona takes up the most space in your life, and what's what are like your top 3 personas?
Well, let's start with the first question. Let's
Okay.
see if the other two come into the picture.
Okay.
Definitely, that is one of my. It is a very strong persona,
Mm-hmm.
and at times I've thought that it's too strong in proportion to the others.
Mm.
So, and there's a history behind it. As you were asking me about it, I thought, when did that start? And it actually started long before I reached the age of 76 years old, or my age now. It started when I was very young. I was told when I was very young, I was like a gentleman. I was like old for my age.
Mm-hmm. An old soul.
Perhaps I'm Capricorn. That's supposed to be a characteristic of Capricorn, that they're kind of old for their age when they're young, and they get younger when they get older. So maybe that's an influence. In my case, I think it had a lot to do with my circumstances. So from a young age, there was no father. My father left home. You asked that I be open about myself, so I can be open with
Yeah,
that.
let's hear it. I love it.
My father left home when I was 5, and even in the first 5 years of my life, which are really formative years in our lives, he wasn't around. He was back and forth, and then I saw him again when I was 8, and then I didn't see him again until I was in my 30s.
Wow.
So there wasn't a father presence. There wasn't a man in the house very much, aside from a few men in my mother's life. There wasn't a man there to take that position as the man of the house, which I shared with my twin brother. That helped.
Yeah.
And also my mother was mentally and emotionally unstable. So that put me in a position of having to be a man in the sense of responsibility that my brother and I had when things went chaotic. We had this sort of, it's happening again. So I learned to be a caretaker or caregiver
Mm-hmm.
at a very young age. So that definitely is an influence.
Yeah.
And then also later on in life, that tended to affect my relationships with people and with my intimate relationships as well with women. So I became keenly aware of how it was both a strength and a weakness. It
Yeah.
was a strength in terms of my becoming a therapist and
Yeah.
being able to be sensitive, picking up on cues and empathetic and helping others, which I realize also is an indirect way of taking care of myself.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So I thought, well, let's get a more direct route. Let's get your own needs met.
Yeah.
So I saw the pros and the cons of that. So that's something that I tried to consciously move away from.
Moving away from what?
Away from being identified so strongly with being the caretaker
Mm.
and the caregiver and the provider.
Yes.
Not the provider so much, but being responsible,
Yes.
and being in a role of advising and
Yeah.
guiding, which I'm proud of. I now accept it, but at the same time, I think we all need a balance in our lives. So I consciously, a number of years ago, actually 2009, closed the center that I had in Montreal where I was in that role in a big way, and decided to focus on things that were on the back burner.
Yeah.
And
the back burner meaning just your own healing and process and filling your own cup, or
which was expressed in my activities in my life. In other words, like instead of just being always in a teacher role or therapist role, counseling, or body worker, which is also a caregiving role as well.
Yes.
I thought, well, let's get into things like playing music and writing and things that are not directly responsible for other people.
Yes.
So as I say that, I realized that the first book that I've written is a how-to book. So I haven't yet quite made the full transition.
Yeah.
But in this time where I've been working on letting go of that persona, as you know from your work with me, it's about getting to know the persona and being able to let it go that helps us to be in a place of arbitration and being
wholeness.
More conscious.
Yeah,
and wholeness, having more integrity. So, but in the process of letting go, I also acknowledged that it has value and that it's not about getting rid of it. There's a big difference between letting go and getting rid of.
Oosh. Say that again.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a difference between letting go and getting rid of it. Wow.
Absolutely.
That is really potent.
Yeah, because if we're trying to get rid of something, it's kind of like throwing a ball against the wall and expecting to get rid of the ball that way.
Yes.
It's just going to bounce right back at you. So whereas letting go, it lets go of you. You don't give it that energy. You just let it go, and that's allowed me, and I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
76 years old.
Continuous process.
I'm still working on. I see myself getting into that role. I get asked to do an interview by you, and I think, okay, what do you want to do with this, Daryl? You want to go into your typical persona or not?
Yeah.
And I think, I'm okay with that now.
Yeah.
I'm just doing it because I enjoy doing it, and I have other aspects of my life that are not emphasizing that role. As well. So you asked me about the other persona.
But hold on, I want to respond to this because so beautiful. Your perspective on this is amazing, and so what I'm feeling from you is this letting go of that, elder mentor role has, to me, as someone who's been guided by you, to me it almost makes you a better mentor and guide because you're not so attached to this hierarchical thing. Like before we started the video, we were doing the breath work together, and I was like, oh, I'm guiding you, and that feels weird. And you're like, no, you're not guiding me. We're just doing a thing together. I was like, oh yeah, because every time I have sessions with you, it's not really like we're just there doing a thing together. You're sitting on your side of the couch.
Yeah, I call myself a facilitator. Rather than a therapist.
Yeah.
Because I find that it works better. It's worked better for me too.
Yeah.
When I've been in the position of receiving guidance or some kind of therapeutic process, it helps me if I can know that the person is human and accessible, and they're not just trying to control the process. That'll just close my doors.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It like facilitates more authenticity and vulnerability and like realness. Like you can really go there when that person who's in the facilitator role is just has attached or detached rather from their ego in a big way. We all have the ego, but
yeah, and I think that's, as men, we need to claim our power. Women also need to claim their power, and what does that mean? And I've come to believe or understand that it's not about controlling. In fact, if anything, that is probably disempowering, because it's a fragile thing. You can't really control this universe. So I think that ironically, letting go of the position of authority is empowering, and because it allows you to see the truth, to be clear.
Yeah.
And that's empowering. So when I am mentoring you, my goal and my what gives me my reward in the process is that you be empowered.
Yeah.
Then I feel, okay, I've done my job.
Yes.
I've done my part.
Yes. I feel the same way when I'm guiding people myself, when I'm mentoring people myself. And I really feel like working with you has helped me become a better mentor and guide to other people as well. And it's like when you're saying this to me, the letting go of that, to me in my body, and it's not about control. When I think about control, there's like a tightness and there's a headiness.
Yeah.
When I think about letting go, there's like this flow of energy that can flow between us, rather than like a,
yeah, I like that image. It's kind of like the difference between a square breath and a round breath. Like the square being like you've got four corners.
Yes.
You breathe in, you hold your breath, and then you breathe out, then you hold your breath. A lot of us breathe that way, and that reflects, it happens to all of us at one time or another, but if you're doing that a lot, there's an interruption in the flow. And so when I meditate and when I do my part of my breath work exercise to prepare for that, is this kind of what I call a circular breath. It can also be like a figure eight breath.
Yeah.
And it's infinite. There's no beginning and there's no end. So there's a constant flow between receiving and giving. And that's I think a good image for kind of communication that I like to have with people.
Yeah. I love that. It's this flow. And no like getting stuck over here, up here. It's just, I love that.
Right.
Okay. So I would love to, even just for my own benefit, because we haven't really talked about this in depth, is I would love to hear about your experience as a monk. Like I would love to hear about kind of the details, just where were you, how long, and when was it? But then I would really love to learn about like the insights that you took from that experience, and just like your feeling about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I could start off with how I first became a monk, and
Beautiful.
go from there.
Yeah.
In 1970, think it was. 1970. I was in Vancouver, and that was the hippie era.
Yeah.
I was a hippie, pretty much. I didn't call myself a hippie then, but looking back, I guess that's what I was.
I guess.
And I was experimenting with various hallucinogenics and marijuana and all this stuff. And it was a combination of recreational experimenting, but my main interest, especially in hallucinogenics, was to understand myself better, to understand the universe better. And that was a path that I had embarked on before that. When I was about maybe 14 or 15 years old, I had some experiences that made me very inquisitive about who I am and where I come from.
Yeah.
And so that was an impetus towards that. And one day I was in Vancouver. I was high on mescaline and experiencing a connection with the universe. And I met this guy who was a part of the Krishna movement. He was a meditator. And he wasn't on anything except he was a meditator. And he was tuned in to what I was experiencing. And so we had a nice conversation. And I was inspired to look into meditation. I thought, well, hey, meditation, it's free. There's no after effects. There isn't that feeling that I was getting already from just recognizing that I was psychologically addicted. That I had to smoke up before having breakfast or going to see a movie or whatever it was.
Yes.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that sense of dependency. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to look into meditation. So it was Christmas time, and my mother was in Montreal, and I thought I'd go fly over there and visit her. And she asked me, what do you want for Christmas? That's be typically my mother. Ask that question. Leave it to me to tell her what. And anyway, I said, oh, can you get me the Tibetan Book of the Dead? Because I had heard about this book. And she got it for me, and I read this book, and it just blew me away, because it was just like, wow, it's as if I have known this before. Not that I have any conscious memory of past lives or anything. And this is a Buddhist book. So one thing led to another. I visited different teachers and eventually met, through different circumstances, a Buddhist teacher, and ended up a week later, after reading another book, joining his community in Montreal. And then at that time it was just called the Zen Center in Montreal, and later became a monastery, became more like a monastic practice. And so what was I doing during those years? Well, that changed over the years. It was when we started, it was like a center, and men and women were living in the same building. It was an old fraternity house in Montreal, and formerly a fraternity house, and we did a lot of meditation, and we also had to go out and work, take different jobs just to have money for the community, because Buddhism in Canada was not supported by the lay population. And so I had that experience, and then my teacher also was affiliated with Tibetan Buddhist teachers, and a famous Tibetan teacher came to visit us, one of the tutors of the Dalai Lama, and his name was Kalu Rinpoche, and we had our practice changed again to being more Tibetan Buddhist influenced practice, with various practices including visualization, similar types of sitting meditation, because in Tibetan Buddhism you have different schools of Buddhism, and this one was the Kagyu school, which is the lineage of Milarepa, and in that school it's very similar to Zen. So my background was Zen Buddhism, which is kind of like what they call going straight up the mountain rather than walking around.
Okay.
So it's sort of the direct route. And so it's quite ascetic. The style of sitting is just sort of like sitting back in your chair, leaning against the wall kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's quite strict. And
so you're sitting around sitting in these perfect poses,
Yeah.
meditating for pretty much like the
Yeah,
whole day,
several hours a day, and
Yeah.
some days, sometimes whole days, if we did what we called sessions,
Mm-hmm.
which were like 3 day or 5 days of pretty much constant sitting with just a break for a pretty simple meal and not much sleep.
Mm.
Of course, when
Wow.
you sit a lot, you don't really need as much sleep.
Right.
4 or 5 hours is enough sleep if you're sitting in meditation all day.
Wow.
Not that sitting in meditation isn't an effort, but it just, your nervous system isn't stressed as much.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had that kind of practice for a while. The background of my first teacher was in Korean Zen, and it was a very strict style. With if you batted, if you blinked
Yeah.
during meditation, you get a little tap on the shoulder from a maple wood stick.
Yeah.
You bend over and you get whacked on the back, and that sounds like it's sadistic or masochistic, depending on how you look at it.
It definitely is.
It
sure
wasn't.
is,
It wasn't, because it actually, when you sit for a long time,
Yeah.
you crave the stick.
Yeah.
Because you're just like struggling with your own mind and wanting to be somewhere else.
Yes.
And this puts you right back in your seat very well. Just wakes you up. The lights turn on.
Yeah.
So it might sound a little weird, but
No,
that stick
that makes
helped.
sense. Yeah.
And so that style of meditation was the way my practice started out. Then we started to do this Tibetan Buddhist practice, which involved both study of the sutras, the scriptures, as kind of Buddhism, Buddhist teachings, and some writing involved in that as well, and also visualization practices, chanting practices. So those got included, and also some tantric practices as well, where we learn different yogic techniques, working with what's called in yoga pranayama and breath work and so on.
Can you explain Tantra? Because when you say Tantra, most people think just sex.
Right.
And not that there's anything wrong with sex, and we'll talk about that later. But what is, well, I guess I want to say, not what is Tantra, but what is the particular type of Tantra that you worked with?
Well,
what does that mean?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I will volunteer a definition of Tantra that I heard early on, which it literally means the warp and woof, weaving, like when you weave something. So it's really, the way I understand Tantra, the Tantric school differs from the school that follows precepts, the morality school that follows rules. Both work, but one's the walking around the mountain, the other one's more doing some rock climbing. Perhaps. So with Tantra, instead of like a lot of do's and don'ts, everything goes, but it depends how you do it. In other words, it's about like, can you remain detached and letting go, to use the expression we were talking about before, while you're in it. As one person said, it's like standing in the shit and wiggling your toes. So Tantra, whether it's something difficult or pleasurable, because from a Buddhist perspective, pleasure and pain, Buddhism is called the middle way, and it's neither about being in total pleasure, which is a vulnerable position to be in, because when you fall from that height, you fall hard. Or being totally in hell. You don't want to be there either. So the Buddhist way is called the middle way. So how do you stay in the middle when there's a storm brewing? And that storm can be sex. It can be the energies that you feel in sex. It can be everything in life. It can be dealing with challenges in the business world. All kinds of things. So yes, Tantra can ultimately can include sexual mastery of sexual energy, which is fundamentally not mastery of sexual energy, it's mastery of vital energy,
Mm.
because sexual energy is just referring to the sexual area
Yeah.
and how that affects us. But from a yogic perspective, it's the same energy that's traveling from the lower chakras to the higher chakras. So a lot of people I know are attending tantric workshops, and I'm sure they get benefit from from being practicing being there with another person, because I know that's challenging for
Yeah.
a lot of us to just be there and look at each other in the eyes and feel each other.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's one experience, and that's not likely going to do much damage.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are fooling themselves when they think they're practicing sexual tantra
Mm-hmm.
to be able to practice that, because that's a very powerful energy.
So you're saying that there's a lot of misconceptions about Tantra, and people that are
I believe
saying that Tantra is one thing, they're going to a Tantra workshop, but it's not actually Tantra.
Yeah.
So to you, what is sexual Tantra?
Yeah. I think from the way I understand it, it's like when you can transmute the energy, not repress it,
Mm-hmm.
not hold it back, but when the sexual energy can move up through the chakras and become not just a lower chakra orgasm,
Right.
but a total experience of oneness. So I don't think my conception of it is that it's um, similar to just experiencing oneness, which I'll be honest with you, I haven't experienced it to the same degree in sexual intercourse
Mm-hmm.
as I have in two other experiences I had in my life, and neither of them were in meditation either. One of them was just doing kind of a breathwork experience. It was called rebirthing.
Okay.
In those days, and experiencing that sense of pure love and oneness, no fear, no desire.
Mm.
That's what I imagine the culmination of sexual tantra,
Mm.
which I'll be honest with you, I have not experienced.
Yeah.
I have attempted to practice, and I still I'm working on it.
Yeah.
You know, but in the years that I learned, when I was saying I was practicing tantric practice in those days, it was learning to work with breath and visualization,
Yeah.
primarily, and circulating the energy through your body.
Mm.
This is also done in qigong practices as well.
Do you practice qigong as well? Or?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a master of it, but I've learned a few things and used it in my own practice and some retreats.
So it sounds like you're like a spiritual Renaissance man.
I don't know.
Dabbled in a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
I think what interested me was alchemy.
Yes.
I was looking to transform myself because I was psychological from a very young age. My mother was seeing psychiatrists and shared with me all her Freudian concepts. so I didn't really particularly gravitate to that type of psychology.
Yeah.
But I've always been quite psychological and analytical.
Yeah.
So I realized post monastery days, when I started to do therapeutic work myself and discover other parts of myself, that I could talk circles around myself or around the therapist psychologically. That wasn't getting me anywhere.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, what got to me was things like body work. It got through my body that sort of bypassed the conceptual thinking mind. And I really believe that for me to understand who I am and what I'm about, it has to be more holistic. It has to be there has to be a transformation perspective. If I'm thinking just within the box, I'm limited.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to get out of the box? I think it's more like something like what it means to be born. We say born again. It's like when you come out of the egg, it's breaking out of a kind of a box.
Yeah.
But that's what happens with the gestation period.
Yeah.
Ends up that way.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing you saying is like all these practices that you've done over your life. The body work, the qigong, the meditation, the tantra, your practices as a monk, the visualizations, all these things are paths of transformation and like removing layers and rebirthing and attaining new levels of awareness and consciousness. Is that how you would describe, like, I'm just kind of trying to get down to the bottom of like, what is it what are all these things for? Because I do so many of these things myself too, and I have my own. I just want to hear why do you want to do these things?
I don't know about other people, but for me, I wouldn't say that it's about attaining new levels of consciousness, because what I have learned is, just to speak about my meditation practice, for example, that I don't really strive to attain a particular level anymore. I feel that these levels we attain are transitory, you know. So I see it as a more cyclical thing.
Yeah.
So transformation, I see that way too. So
it's not like you're going up.
Well, it's not necessarily going up and
linear. You're just kind of.
Sometimes you have to go down before you go up too.
Yeah, totally.
That's part of the cycle, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Fortunately or unfortunately, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
But I've come to accept that I'm not in control, and what I can strive to do is to be a master. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Is not to control my circumstances, but to be able to accept them with clarity and deal with them in the most masterful way that I can. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm stoic, you know, or that I don't, you know, this has to do with the men thing. I mean, I believe that a lot of men think that you're not allowed to cry if you're a man.
Yeah.
The highest teacher that I had, who's considered to be a Buddha, could cry and be angry. So I don't think it's about denying our humanity.
Yeah.
So I think that transformation is, I can't really know if I did. That would be a bore if I already knew what was coming.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just seeking, when I say alchemy, I'm just seeking to be the best me that I can.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What I'm hearing you say to me is like peace. To me, it feels like peace with life. But I want to ask you, okay, because you're talking about letting go. Sounds like everything is about letting go, detaching, and accepting, and surrendering. Now, what do you say to the people that are into the manifesting and that whole world?
Right.
Because there's a level of control to that. Yeah. Like, I want to make. I'm doing it right now. I'm literally doing it right now, where I write in my journal every morning, I'm so happy and grateful that I make X amount of dollars per month by this certain date. I feel so happy and grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm manifesting that. Or that's so what do you say to people like that? Like, do you do that? And
that's a good question. Like I said before, it's cyclical. Okay. So at times I've been into manifesting. And at other times, I mean, in a sense, I'm always into manifesting one thing or another. What I'm into manifesting now is not being concerned about manifesting.
Well, okay. No, that's...
And I'm not trying to be tricky with words.
No, I know. That's another way of saying letting go.
Yeah, but it's also, it takes work because there's a lot of programming, a lot of conditioning.
For sure. So you're working towards letting go.
Yeah.
That, I think, is different because it's not you're working towards making a certain amount of money. You're working towards this
letting go is not a passive thing.
Right.
Letting go is a conscious act. And
yes.
So for me, to be more specific, there are times when, a a lot of manifesting is around money.
Yeah.
And what's money about? Yeah, it's for putting food on the table and paying your rent. But it's also about image. It's about uh, proving yourself. Success. What does success mean? Literally, success just means one step leads to the next.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean just like having a lot of money, obviously.
Well,
or winning a gold medal for that matter.
Daryl, I'm not sure if you heard, but it's 2025, and now success is how many TikTok followers you have.
Right,
you got to get with the
I'm
with the times.
behind the times. But so for me, as far as I think there is a place, and it's something I've had to work on, because coming from a meditation background where you it was very non-materialistic.
Yeah.
I had to decondition myself when I emerged out of that shell into the cloistered community, into the world.
Yeah.
I won't say real world because it's not anymore real.
Right.
It's another illusion.
Yeah.
But I had to. First of all, I didn't have a penny in my pocket. I had no possessions, and I had to manifest fast. I won't even get into the details, but it was an interesting story of how I managed to make things happen together, and eventually, be able to support myself and have a family and so on. But yeah, there's a time to do that. For every season, there is a time. So I had to, at times, I had to acknowledge that not only is it necessary, but it's actually a part of who we are. There's nothing wrong with trying to make things happen, with doing things.
Yeah.
What I would call the masculine energy. We have the masculine energy and we have the feminine energy. So feminine is about letting go and receiving, and masculine is about making it happen.
Yeah.
And if we look at nature, that's what's happening in nature all the time. It's quite natural. So I think that they both have their place. I think what's really important is being aligned with where you are, who you are. And so really looking at who is behind letting go and who is behind manifesting. If there's an avoidant procrastinator that's behind letting go, that might not be the best option.
Right.
And if there is a son who's trying to prove himself to his parents when they're long gone, to manifest, that might not be the best motivation.
Yeah.
So I think it's not whether one is right or wrong; it's where you're coming from.
That's a great point, and it's reminding me that life isn't black and white. There's a lot of duality, and I always try personally to just, what's the one way? Is it letting go, or is it manifesting? That's how I try to, organize my brain, and it's really helpful to remember that, there's seasons, and also just this both at the same time.
Balancing.
Literally.
Exactly.
Manifesting and detaching can happen at the same time.
Yeah, I've noticed, to give a clear example of that, I was asked last week to do a talk at this local school. And in the past, one thing I've learned about myself, I have a persona that's the Boy Scout persona, be prepared. So I was really good at preparing.
Okay.
So I would make an outline and have a whole bunch of points. And I noticed a pattern that you can be too prepared. And when I was all prepared and I'm giving a talk, I couldn't be as spontaneous. Sometimes I would get, my inner critic would give me a hard time about not saying this or saying something off script.
You have one of those too?
I have one of those.
You have an inner critic? Man.
We all do.
Okay.
Actually, thank God for him. He helps me out a lot.
Yeah.
Too. But the inner critic says, put your microphone this way. That's good. So I decided to not prepare at all for this talk, just to be I mean, I won't say that my mind was blank because I knew that they were asking me to talk about, in this case, meditation and creativity. So I thought, okay, well, obviously there's information in there.
Yeah, you got
So
it.
if I'm in front of these kids, I'm going to know. I'm going to have something to say eventually. Yeah. Let's just let it happen. And it went really, really well. So there was an example of what I would say: letting go and making it happen.
Yeah.
Working together.
Yeah.
You know, there was one of my mentors, Joseph Heller, who went in something I did called Heller work. One of his motto was excellence with ease.
Yes.
And I thought, I remember there's one of my best friends in high school was like a star athlete in high school, and he made everything look easy. You notice, like a good basketball player,
yeah,
they just make it look so easy.
Yeah.
So, is that just because they're good that it's easy, or is it maybe because they're taking it easy? They're playing.
Yes.
That it works better.
Yes.
Playing can work better.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
What comes to mind is like when you over prepare or you become too rigid.
Yeah.
And then when you become too rigid, then it's like, oh, if one little thing doesn't go right, then it becomes this huge deal and you're not able to flow in that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you leave room for having it with ease, you can kind of dance in the present moment, and you can't really do something wrong.
Yeah.
If you're flowing in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I want to transition. Let's take one deep breath together, in through the nose and out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3. So one thing that you mentioned on your pre-podcast notes is taking care of a dying person. I was really curious about, I forget if that was the exact words that you used.
I don't recall actually the context.
Oh, you know, okay.
Go ahead.
I think I asked you, what are some topics that you find interesting these days? And that was one of the things that you put. It was like,
okay.
Like,
but that is one of my experiences in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember the context of the question or why I came up with that answer, but
yeah.
Go ahead and ask me a question.
Yeah, so I'd love to just hear about like your experience with that, and I know you don't remember putting it in there, but just why is it something that is meaningful to you in your life?
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I don't remember why it was meaningful in the context of your question.
Yeah.
But what comes to my mind now are two things. First of all, death has been an important theme in my life.
Mm-hmm.
When I mentioned that I had an experience at a young age, it was also around, what is death? Mm-hmm. Where do we come from? What is birth? Is the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And where am I going? And I had a burning need to answer that question, which, by the way, hasn't been answered yet. But not fully answered, that's for sure. But it'll be fully answered, I guess, when the time comes.
Yeah.
But taking care of dying people, which I had to do for 5 years. My aunt first, and then my mother and my late partner, all in the same 5 years. Gave me firsthand experience of being close to dying. And I would say that I'm not sure, to be honest, what I learned from it. To be really honest, I don't really know, except that I was not afraid to be close to a dying person after that. I was not avoiding it
After those
after those
experiences.
experiences. I don't remember if it was a problem before, but I'm sure I had thoughts that it's going to be difficult. What do you do when you're with a dying person?
Yeah.
What do you say to them when they know they're dying and so on? I guess that one thing I realized was that there was nothing I had to do. I just had to be with them. You know, hold my mother's hand or hold my late girlfriend's hand. You know, I didn't have to fix it.
Yeah.
It couldn't be fixed, but I just needed to be present.
Yeah.
And perhaps the lesson in that is that that's all you can do when you die. It's just be here now.
Yeah.
You know, I think what fucks us up, pardon the language,
it's all good.
is being concerned about what happens after, or comparing with what you're leaving behind, or that is a concern. I mean, I have a daughter, so that is one of the more difficult things for me to accept about if I think about my own looming death, which is going to happen eventually. But I think I have learned that, and I'm open to learning more. But so far, what I've learned is there's nothing to be done.
Yeah.
My whole life has been spent on preparing for death. That's been basically the leitmotif of my whole life, and perhaps I'm still doing it to some extent, but I do have a sense that there's really nothing you can do to prepare for it.
Yeah.
And so far so good.
Yeah.
Whatever happened before has led me to this, and I feel very fortunate to have the life that I have.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And when we're talking about death and you talking about how there's nothing to do or that you can do either in the moment or to prepare for it, it really ties back to the theme of letting go. And something that I've heard, and I'm just wanting to bring it into the conversation, is for those people that believe in reincarnation and multiple lifetimes, what I've heard people say is that when you have some kind of resistance when you get to your deathbed, where there's like regret or not accepting it, you're like, oh my God, I'm dying, this sucks, something like that, that means you come back for another round, another lifetime,
or that you might be reborn in a form that is congruent with that kind of thinking.
Yes.
The Buddhists say if you act like a pig, you'll be reborn as a pig.
Okay. Yes. So so how do you, and so there's and then if you let go and you accept and you're just like, okay, and you go and you die in peace, then you're done on this cycle of lifetimes. That's what I've heard. So what do you?
Well, I attended a talk many years ago in Montreal by a Buddhist teacher, an American woman who had studied with a well-known Tibetan Buddhist master, and she worked a lot with dying people, and she compared it to a border crossing. When you get to the border, I can relate to that as a Canadian when I've crossed into the U.S. or back and forth, and they ask you questions, and what happens after depends on what you present to them and how they receive it. So, and she said, on the one level, the only thing that matters is how you are when you get to the border.
Right.
When you get to that crossing between life and death. But
not necessarily what you've done up to that point.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
But how you are at the time of arriving at the border is conditioned by everything that preceded that.
Very
how
true.
You lived your life before.
Yeah.
So we often hear about people who when they're in the process of dying, one of the things that they want to do is get right with themselves about their life before. Part of I think the fear that we have of dying isn't so much losing the body; it's losing the ego. It's like losing what we think is me, which is basically a story.
Yeah.
A story that we've written of our lives that we've created. So if we look back and we feel like we screwed up, then it's going to make it harder. And so I think that there's nothing wrong with preparing it that way, in the sense of that I feel that whether it's because of my preparing for death or just who I am or my fortunate circumstances, I am actually quite happy with how I live my life.
Yeah.
I thought about this just yesterday. I thought about, I don't remember what led to that, but I thought I have no regrets. I mean, I've made mistakes.
Yeah.
But I feel that I've had a good life, and that if I were to die now, I've had a very good life, and I don't regret that I missed out on something. So I think that is part of it. But also, what have we got to lose? And making sure that doing our best with every moment, because in the moment we'll be happier.
Yes.
So it all works towards the same goal.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you say, for me, I too, I'm pretty sure I'm not afraid of death, personally. I'm like, if I died now, I'd be dead. You
wouldn't be there.
That would be it. And I'm not really,
unless there's some guy watching you.
Yeah. And I don't really fear that. But when I think about death now, at this stage in my life, I don't think about me and losing my ego and all that. I think about my young children. I think about my mom and what that would do to her, and my wife, and but mostly, my children, is especially because they're still so young. So it's like this interesting. It's not really like me. I don't know. I can.
Well, it is part of you.
Die, and
I think
fine.
that our kids, people close to us, are attached to them.
Yes.
So they are part of us.
They are. Yeah.
So
you can't separate.
It could be. I suppose it could be argued that it's an extension of your ego as well.
That's a great point.
Or yourself.
That's a great point. Yes. Yeah. So,
but
I guess I am afraid of death then.
But on the other hand, a person might deduce from that, okay, just detach yourself from everybody, and whatever death is all about, I'm not going to let go of love. To me, that is worth dying for and worth living for.
Oosh. Okay. That is beautiful.
And love and attachment are not the same thing.
Oosh. Speak on it. Yeah. What is the difference between love and attachment?
You love anyway. Whatever, happens, you love anyway. When the person is gone and they're detached from you, they're not even in a body anymore, and you still love them, that's love. I don't think love can be killed. I don't think, I think love is like life. Life doesn't get born or die. The body does, but life goes on. And I don't think I can analyze love, because it's something of the heart. I can't put a definition on it, but I just know that that's, when I was asked once what I value the most, I value love. And so, whereas attachment it's got to do with the letting go thing, I guess. Attachment, when you're attached to something, you you grip onto it, and you need it, and then sometimes you grip too tight,
Yeah.
and squeeze the life out of it,
Yeah.
or you you feel like it's being ripped away because you are identified with that being a part of you. So it's the same thing as when we get identified with a part of us, and then we get screwed up because we're too identified with that role or that persona.
Yeah.
That we're better off. We're more free to live fully who we are when we are not too attached, when we don't hold on to it. So to me, it's love is bigger than attachment.
Yeah.
One of my teachers was asked by one of his students, if he is total, something about whether he's attached or whether he's totally non-attached, and the way he said it, he said, well, when you leave, you're always in my heart, so in that sense I'm attached.
Yeah.
So there can be different interpretations of that, but it's really a mental thing. He told a story once of a guy who had a pet mouse, and he asked somebody to mouse sit his mouse while he went away on a trip. And unfortunately, at one point, the mouse ran away, and the guy felt horrible. And so then he went to look for another mouse that looked just like that mouse. And the guy came back, and everything was fine. So,
he didn't notice.
He didn't know. So if he had known that the mouse was gone, he would have felt horrible.
Yeah.
But the mouse was gone, but he still felt love for his mouse.
Wow. That's so interesting. It's like, to me, what it's saying is like, I'm currently really sitting with this. It's like this devotion to love. Like, love that's the primary thing. Regardless of relationship status or situations, or it's just the feeling of love, the idea of love, versus like, oh, I love this person because they mean this specific thing to me and they're with me, and does that kind of make sense?
And also, and the with me thing is also about completing yourself through that other person. That if your love is dependent too much on the other person giving you love, then maybe it's a pretty conditional love. It's not really love in the full sense of the word. And how do we have a full love? I think the answer to that is you got to love yourself. If we can't fully love ourselves, whether we screw up or whether we're doing well, in whoever's eyes, mine or anybody else's, then that's where we have problems, when we're looking for somebody else to complete ourselves. So for me, I think it's about like what we all need to do in our life is to love ourselves better. To whatever we're experiencing, just if I were to say that there is one reward of transformation that I'm looking for, that would be it.
Self-love.
To love myself fully enough that there is no more sense of duality within me or with somebody else. Because if I'm not loving myself fully, it means that there's a conflict. There's some inner fighting going on. And if that's going on, good luck getting along with somebody else.
Right.
So I think that we need to know ourselves. And the old English sense, in the King James Version of the Bible, in Old English, knowing somebody meant having sexual intercourse with them. So I got to have sexual intercourse with myself. That's
self-pleasure practice.
In the fullest sense of the word.
Yeah.
We can't end on that note. That doesn't sound right.
We can't end on that note? Okay. Well, I'll ask you one more question. Okay. I want to ask you, bringing it back to the men here. What is your prayer for men?
That they accept themselves fully and love themselves as they are. And that, to me, is being a man. Because they don't have to try to be a man. They just need to be who they are. They are a man, they're born as a man, and just whatever you're born as, if you want to be fully that man, then just know yourself and have the courage to feel yourself deeply, be with yourself.
Beautiful.
Whatever that looks like
to
anybody else.
Amazing. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So, where can people, unless you don't want people to find you, but if you would like people to find you and learn about you, where would you like them to do that?
Yeah, I do, as you know, I do counseling sessions and mentoring people, and with a limited number of people.
Yeah.
I enjoy my lifestyle, and so far I don't have to worry about that. I'm not famous.
Nice.
But,
Yet.
We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, if I come to it. But I have a website that's just, I think it's just darylvansier.com. And if that's not it, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
And on that website, there are different options that people can choose to do lifestyle counseling or breathwork sessions, and learn how to meditate, different things like that.
And what is the title of the book that you wrote?
Walk the Talk.
Walk the Talk.
The full title is Walk the Talk, The Art of Living.
Walk the Talk, The Art of Living. And this can be found on
It can be found
Amazon.
on Amazon, yeah. And just be sure that if you're going on Amazon that you put The Art of Living as well, because there's other books that have Walk the Talk in the titles, I think.
The Art of Living.
It exists in digital form as well as the paperback form as well. So,
okay.
Yeah. And it can also be found on other book websites, like Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, all those things.
Great. Well, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to learn more about Daryl, you know where to find him. And if you would like to dive deeper with myself personally, you can visit initiatedman.com. And I would love to work with you more closely. This has been another episode of the Initiated Man podcast. And I gotta say, it was so much fun talking to you. And
Initiated Man.
Initiated Man, yes. I learned so much. It was a very connective conversation, and I'm so glad that you said yes. And I look forward to doing it again.
All right.
Yeah.
Why not?
Okay. Love ya.
Thank you.
And that's all, folks.